of the things that you will notice in this beginning slide is I begin with a quote from Winston Churchill. If we open a quarrel between the past and the present, we shall find that we have lost the future. And why I include it and why do I think it is very important, I will make explanations towards the end of my presentations. Now, just to start off, to introduce myself, my name is Lim Tze Tshen, and what am I doing over here, and what sort of scientific research that I'm doing? First of all, I'm a paleontologist. I study paleontology, which is the scientific systematic study of fossils, animals and plants remains preserved in the hard rock layers of the earth. And the group that I focus on is animals. What I studied are mammals, including humans. And I touch on a little bit on humans as well, but most of my research I focus on non-humans, mammals, animals. And in recent years, I also ventured into the field of archaeology, which is the scientific systematic studies of cultural artifacts left behind by prehistoric and historical human populations. For example, stone tools, prehistoric porcelains, ancient rock art, and also some of the burial jars from Borneo, and also the hieroglyphics from ancient Egypt. I specialize in a specific field of archaeology called zoological archaeology, or zooarchaeology in short, which is these studies of non-human animal bones from prehistoric archaeological sites. So, like I said, in fossils, paleontological research, and also zooarchaeological research, I focus on animals with backbones, vertebrates, like elephants and rhinos. And I'm also interested in the modern day mammal fauna of Southeast Asia, especially Malaysia. In Malaysia, we have a highly diverse mammal fauna because Malaysia is together with the other countries in the regions are located somewhere towards the equators. And this is a geographic hotbed for evolutions, for the origins of so many species. And that's part of the reasons why Malaysia has such a high diversity of mammals in the world. And one of my key research in recent years is I want to find connections, meaningful connections between the old bones that are studied from the fossil sites, from archaeological sites, and also the recent ecosystems. Here, I would like to quote my fictional colleague, Dr. Alan Grant, because I think he sums up very nicely what conservation paleobiology is all about. Now, in this book, written by Michael Crichton in 1991, he said that Grant knew that paleontology, the study of extinct life, had in recent years taken on an unexpected relevance to the modern world. The modern world was changing fast, and urgent questions about the weather, deforestation, global warming, or the ozone layers often seem answerable, at least in part, with information from the past, information that paleontologists could provide. So that is always the desire to link up whatever scientific information that we could get from the fossils and zooarchaeological reports to the modern world, to make all this scientific research relevant to the current environmental crisis that we are facing. The history of the Earth is like a layer cake. The deeper you go, the older the geological layers. And what I am doing in my research in paleontology and zooarchaeology focus on the uppermost layers called the Pleistocene and the Holocene, or in combinations called the Quaternaries. That is the last 2.5 million years history of Earth. And because of these time periods, whatever scientific information that we found in the fossils and zooarchaeological record from the Quaternaries can actually have direct connections with the modern world. So, by the way, as a sideline, does anyone in the audience is a fan of Sherlock Holmes or novels of Sir Arthur Gau? All right? Okay, good. We have more things in common now. Okay, one of the key principles that Sherlock Holmes or any capable detectives working on is that the amount of useful or meaningful information that one could obtain from a crime site is disproportionate to the crime when it was committed, which means that you will have a better chance to catch the culprits if the crime happened just yesterday as compared to that happened 10 years ago. And this applies in my case for the fossils and zooarchaeological research as well, because I'm focused on the last 2.5 million years history of Earth and life on Earth. And then this is basically what we are living nowadays is a logical and natural extensions of the history from 2.5 million years ago. So definitely by studying these bones, the hippo bones, the only hippo bones in Malaysia is now in public displays in museum negaras, and also studying the Java rhinoceros remains from the archaeological site in Guacha in Ulu Kelantan. Definitely, when these are properly studied, we could find the information that will be useful in fitting into the modern day conservations. And one of the revelations that we got from studying the fossils and also the zooarchaeological remains is we draw the geographical range of some of the species. Biogeography is a scientific studies of the distributions of animals across the globe. These are the fossilized cheek teeth, molars of Asian elephants found in Peninsular Malaysia. And in the much more enriched distributions of modern elephants and also the fossil elephants, you can see that there also occurs in the prehistoric times in parts of the Peninsular Malaysia where there is no longer Asian elephants around. For example, in Perlis, there was the fossils of Asian elephants found in Perlis, but nowadays Perlis doesn't have any living Asian elephants. Another remarkable examples of biogeographic range revelations from the study of fossils and also the archaeological remains is tigers and orangutans at the national levels. There is no more suitable animals than these two to symbolize Malaysia. There's only living elephants in Malaysia. For some of you may not know that in Sabah and Sarawak in East Malaysia, there is no longer Malayan tigers. And orangutans, where in Malaysia that we could find orangutans? Only in Sabah and Sarawak. And this is one of the sites with remarkable tiger fossils. I would like to point out that this fossil site was found way back in 1992 by the Caving Group of Malaysian Nature Society. So Malaysian Nature Society is not just the oldest environmental NGO in Malaysia, but it has contributed hugely to the scientific research, especially in the fossil research of Malaysia. Because East Malaysia with these first evidence of tigers from Sarawak. It was reported way back in 1963 when Malaysia started to exist as an independent nation, but the fossils found was found a long time ago on 15th of February 1958. It is one of the zooarchaeological remains from Nya Cave in Sarawak. Zooarchaeological remains means that this used to be part of the food of prehistoric humans roaming the Nyang Caves in Sarawak. And we have also finding of tigers, not just in Sarawak, but also in Sabah, in a cave site called Malaya Cave, and it is dated about 9,000 years ago. This is part of the foot bone of the tigers. So now we have evidence of prehistoric tigers, not just from Sarawak, but also from Sabah in East Malaysia. From this map, the first thing you will see is that the red is the current distributions, the estimated current distributions of tigers. This is still roaming in certain areas in urban Malaysia, but unfortunately in highly endangered status. But across the pond in East Malaysia, there's no more living tigers, but there are fossils or zooarchaeological remains of tigers in not just Sarawak, but also in Sabah. And I would like to bring your attention to the fact that I didn't make this discovery myself. I rely heavily on the works of my academic predecessors. For example, Tom and Barbara Harrisons, who were the original excavators of the Nyang Caves in Sarawak, with the help of the, at that time called Lord Medway, the fifth Earl of Cranbrook now, and the Dutch paleontologists that I mentioned before that helped to identify the tiger remains that Alcohol used. And also, I rely heavily on the recent work by my colleagues from Australia, Peter Bellwood from the State Terry Harrisons, and also Phil Piper and Ryan Rabbit. All these papers make huge contributions towards our understanding of the prehistoric animal world in Nyang and Borneo. And now come to one of my favorite animals, orangutans. The orangutans are nowadays found within Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak only. And fair enough, we have orangutans remains from near Sarawak. But again, across the pond, in the opposite side in East Malaysia, in recent years, my colleagues and I could explore some of the large areas in Peninsular Malaysia, for example, this cave in Pahang, and we found lots of evidence of prehistoric orangutans in Peninsular Malaysia. These are all the fossilized teeth of orangutans. And strangely enough, there are a number of them that shows pathological signs. So, through the hard work of generations of paleontologists, we now can really map up the prehistoric distributions of orangutans. Nowadays, orangutans are limited on the island of Sumatra and also Borneo, but the fossils and zooarchaeological records shows that in prehistoric time, orangutans, the ancient great apes had a huge geographic distribution, started from the southern side of China down to the island of Java. What we are seeing now is simply the result of a tilt of declining geographic range. The tigers used to be in West and East Malaysia, but now limited only on West Malaysia. The orangutans are limited on East Malaysia nowadays, but during prehistoric time they have a huge distribution range. I'm coming back to this map again, which shows the current distribution of Asian elephants, but also I also plotted out one of the ancient elephant species that we found recently, just only recently, during the COVID periods from the Kinta Valley, the stegodons. So how does the stegodon look like? You can see over there, there's a stem from India, and then it is so primitive looking. So actually, it's the ancient relatives of elephants. And today I also bring a model of the stegodons. The stegodon, the adult male of stegodon, which is different from the ancient elephant, is their tusk. They have long, huge, and slightly upward turning tusks that grows so narrowed in between that there's no enough space for them to rest their trunks. So they have to rest their trunks on either sides of the tusk. So this is one of the characteristics differentiating Asian elephants and also these ancient elephant relatives called the stegodons. And now moves to the group of ancient or very, very primitive locates, angulates. Okay, the tapirs and the rhinos, they're all grouped together called the Paleobiology or the odd-toothed angulates. And that occurs not very lately in East and West Malaysia as well. But nowadays, with a much reduced diversity in East and West Malaysia, there are still living tapirs in West Malaysia, and then the Java rhinos and small rhinos were recently extinct in Peninsular Malaysia, but sadly in Borneo, the whole of Borneo, there is no more living Paleontological or odd-toothed angulates anymore, because we have no living tapirs in Borneo, not in Sabah and Sarawak or Kalimantan, and then we have no more rhinos in Sabah or Sarawak with the recent death of the last wild Sumatra rhinos in Sabah called Imam. And in Sarawak, again from here, we have the subfossils remains of the tapirs. These materials were actually found in 1961 and also represented the first evidence of the existence of tapir in prehistoric Borneo. Some people say that extinction means forever. There's no way that we could bring back the stegodons or the Asian straight-tusked elephants into the places. But in some cases, perhaps we'll make some exceptions, like the tapirs in Borneo. I just mentioned that there were zooarchaeological remains of tapirs in Sarawak and perhaps also in Sabah. These were the ancient hunted animals from Sabah and Sarawak. And also unconfirmed sightings of tapirs have been reported in Brunei, in the Gulf Coast, way back in the 1980s. And some of the geologists doing surveys in the Ulus Gama areas in Sabah noticed animals with black and white skins. So these are the unconfirmed sightings of the tapirs in recently dated Borneo and Sabah and Sarawak. Perhaps we could make exceptions over here that by studying the zooarchaeological records, we provide a very positive evidence of the existence of tapirs in prehistoric Borneo. And nowadays, Borneo in Sabah and Sarawak still has quite a large areas of forested areas. Perhaps someone could really propose the reintroductions of some of the Malayan tapirs from Malaysia to some parts of Sabah and Sarawak. So that explains why in the beginning of these presentations, I used the quote from Lim Tze Tshen. And I would also like to quote him at the end of my presentations. The further backward you can look, further forward you can see. So that is a strong conservation message that we can learn by studying the fossils and the zooarchaeological remains in Malaysia. And hopefully, these information can feed into modern day conservation science and also beneficial to the conservation world at large. Thank you very much. They are not the same scales. The modern Asian elephants are usually smaller in size than the stegodons. But there are also some species of stegodons that live on islands. And it is a well-known fact that island animals tend to be smaller in size. So there are some stegodon species in the islands of Indonesia, for example. They are much smaller in size than the Asian elephants.
Second question is,
the Bornean elephants now looking at the evidence with tend to think that it's a native species instead of introduced. Be it from the genetic evidence, also the evidence from zooarchaeological records, all pointed out that at some point in the past, Borneo has the Asian elephants. So it's highly likely that the living Bornean elephants nowadays in Sabah and North Kalimantan, they are descendants of a truly native indigenous species.
So when you say Asian elephants, actually the Borneo pygmy elephants.
Yes, they are not pygmy at all.
They're not pygmy elephants.
They are not pygmy at all. They are almost similar size to the living Asian elephants.
Lim, you made references to studying some of these fossils from Nia caves. Can I ask where are these specimens kept and under whose jurisdiction?
The legal owner of all these materials are the Sarawak Museum Department, and the zooarchaeological specimens, non-human animal bones, have a long and winding histories. There was excavated in the 1950s, started by Tom and Barbara Harrisons, and because at that time there's no local expert to study the materials, so they sent the bulk of the materials to Europe, to Netherlands, in order to study by Dick Albert Hoyert. And when the study finished and Dick Albert Hoyert retired from the museum and passed away, all the materials remained in Leiden.
In London.
Leiden, Netherlands,
Oh, Netherlands.
at that time. But in recent years, Sarawak museums request back all these materials, and Leiden happily returned all the materials, and they are now safely in the new Borneo Cultures Museum in Gucci.
And are these exhibited for public to see?
Unfortunately, the exhibited materials compose only about less than 1% of the all the excavated materials. And many of the materials, they are still kept in the storage and then for research purposes.
I think we Malaysians are very stingy in giving applause. Can we give a big round of applause? I think you've done a great job. Very dedicated and very knowledgeable young men. Yeah? It's such a privilege that we have you here today to actually tell us all the unique details that we'll never get anywhere else. Do you know that Malaysia have like what 3 species of elephants? But do you know that Peninsular Malaysia actually has orangutans? I mean, these are very good knowledge, right? And I think maybe we could have him back another time, maybe not that soon, but maybe another time, and maybe we'll do a better promotion next time. Like get all the young ones to be excited about, paleontology, and we have, maybe another extra speakers, because this is a gold mine. We haven't even touched just the iceberg of this, rich data and rich knowledge of Malaysian paleontology. Okay, I think we have a small gift for us. I would like to invite Bernie to give a small token from MNS.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Oh, I love it.
Thank you
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Asen. So we would like also to record our thanks to Rimba Ilmu, Dr. Yong, and also to MNS Photo Group for taking all the videos. So once they launch the video, I would like to encourage you to actually share it with your friends. I think this is really, really wonderful knowledge that we don't want others to miss out about the rich biodiversity, the rich history, the rich fossil findings of Malaysia. Okay? With that, thank you very much for attending today's event. And if you would like to talk to us more during the coffee break or the tea, you can always do so. Okay? Thank you very much, everyone.